southern Italy, across from Sicily. Everyone here is Italian. Everyone here likes good food, and most everyone here is Catholic. But there's much more to uncover about their roots.
My family, the last name, the surname Aiello, goes all the way back to Judea and biblical times. Elul means actually in Hebrew to God. And from there, the family went to Babylonia during the first diaspora, and after that to Spain, to Portugal, to Gibraltar, to Morocco, Sardinia, Sicily, and also to the toe of the boot in Reggio Calabria, and then finally running from persecution, the persecution of the Inquisition in the 1500s to Nicastro, now is Lamezia Terme, Scigliano, and now Serra Stretta.
500 years ago, according to scholars and locals alike, there were more than 50,000 Jews living across this region.
La Giudecca non è altro che un luogo che gli ebrei sceglievano, cioè non erano costretti loro ad andare lì per essere rinchiusi, loro sceglievano questo luogo, tipo questo da noi che è chiamato Timpone, Timpone deriva da timpa, timpa da noi significa roccia, è un piccolo quartiere costruito sulla roccia, e le case sono senza fondamenta ed è circondato da due torrenti che la chiudono, e dove questi due torrenti sotto si incrociano c'è un ponte che consentiva di attraversare il fiume e andare in questo quartiere.
And that's the way things remained. A distant historic memory. A once-was Jewish section in each town. Some families who might admit to having once been Jewish hundreds of years ago. Until something changed. When an Italian-American woman who grew up in Pittsburgh, but whose family had emigrated to the USA from Calabria in the 1920s, discovers her family's secret Jewish roots. And eventually becomes a rabbi with a mission.
My father was the liberator of the Buchenwald concentration camp. Dopo lui ha visto dentro il campo questi ragazzi quasi morti. Lui ha detto a me, tu devi fare qualcosa per ebrei. The priests around me here, they trust me because I'm not going to say, leave the Catholic Church, you're really Jewish. I say, you must know your history.
Allora, tu sai che in tempo fa, molti anni fa, è stato il posto dei ebrei. Sì, tu conosci questa? Sì, che cosa tu ricordi? Che hanno detto?
Hanno detto perché c'era una cosa che c'era l'olio.
Ah, l'olio. Sì.
Hanno fatto questa cosa che c'è, come si chiama? L'arco.
Sì, anche i cognomi, cittadini, taverne,
io sono
cittadini è un nome ebraico. Tu conosci questo? Voi conoscete? Sì.
I would say to people, do you think you're Jewish? And they would say, no. Then I realized I was asking the wrong question. What I needed to be asking was, what did your family do when a baby was born? What did your family do when a boy or a girl reached 12 or 13 years old? What did your family do for a wedding? What did your family do for mourning when people died? People would say to me, when the baby's born, you must put a red string in the crib. Kabbalah. They would say, when you marry, before you go to church, you have to put the bride and groom sotto la coperta. You have to put them under they would crochet, knit a beautiful covering for the bed, but before they put it on the bed, they put the bride and groom underneath and then made a blessing. When the girl reaches 12 years old, you make a dinner like Friday night with 2 candles on the table. And when someone dies, like Zio Mario here in town, we found in the house, I own the house over here a fianco, we went inside and we find 25, 30 low chairs. You saw some of them in there. I said, Zio Mario, this family must have had a lot of children. He said, no, per lutto, for mourning. And when in mourning, they must sit on low chairs. So you see how the traditions, it was too dangerous to say we are Jewish, but you maintain these practices by saying these are our family traditions.
And now we take our Kiddush cup, everyone. We take our cup to make the blessing. We sanctify Shabbat, and we sanctify this very beautiful and special day. Okay, Jeffrey?
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei pri hagafen.
Amen.
Through her website, Rabbi Barbara reached out from this little-known Calabrian village to touch the hearts and minds of the Calabrian Italian diaspora all over the world.
My daughter found Rabbi Barbara's website, and she confirmed everything that I thought we were so different, why we were different, because even simple things like the Italian language. I studied Italian at university, and there's a word in our dialect that my grandmother used to say after we had dinner. She'd say, ricordiamo I hamazzi, which to me, I used to say, I looked it up, and it's not Italian. I used to think, where is this word coming from? And it's only been since I've become more interested in my roots that I found out that it's a Jewish word. And I thought maybe it was just every Calabrese knew the word. And because I have a school, a lot of my students are Calabrese, I used to ask, do you know the word hamazzi? And some would say yes. And then I'd ask their surname, and it was a Jewish surname. And others would say, no, we don't say that, we say Maliki. So it was interesting. It's interesting piecing things together.
I always felt like there was something there. I always felt like I was searching for something and didn't know what it was. And when I started going to the synagogue in Florida and meeting with Rabbi Barbara, I felt like I had come home.
She welcomes American interfaith families of Italian, Calabrian, and Jewish heritage for bar mitzvahs and weddings.
It's an interesting time because I'm doing a bar mitzvah with my son, but I didn't actually have a bar mitzvah. I think I'm particularly excited about this as I felt important for me to make sure that my children were educated to be Jewish.
My grandparents came to the United States, and I was raised Catholic.
My daughter's wedding was mixed, where there was a rabbi and also a Catholic priest. I have no objections to it.
I'm going to have you hold it and actually give it to Jeffrey. I
am happy to do the bar mitzvah here in Calabria because I am not really the party kind of person, and if I did it in the United States, I would have to kind of like throw a party. So I'd rather do it here, and since I'm half Italian, I wanted to do it here.
We offer an alternative to the strict Orthodox practice. We offer a way to live in your family, to live a Jewish life, and to be part of the community.
But not everyone was happy that a Jewish presence, brought by a female rabbi, the first ever in Italy, was making itself felt in this totally Catholic region.
Someone wrote on the wall in front of this apartment building, "Listen, Jew girl." They didn't say Jew old lady, which was nice, I thought. They said Jew girl, since I'm 62 years old. And last time we burned you in the ovens, this time we'll cut you to pieces.
It wasn't only local opposition that made her life difficult, but also from within the Jewish community, there were different voices.
La figura della donna rabbino è una figura molto discussa. La differenza fondamentale tra l'approccio ortodosso e quello riformato su questo punto è la partecipazione all'interno della sinagoga.
L'idea che la donna deve copiare l'uomo significa che la donna non è contenta con queste che c'ha lei.
A woman in my position as a rabbi telling Jews they can be Jewish with a woman rabbi was a really bad thing. A male rabbi as a reformer might have sat a coffee together, but not me, because to have a discussion with me, an Orthodox rabbi, it would mean acknowledging acknowledging me as their colleague. Impossible.
Noi possiamo stare a un tavolo tutti in modo pacifico e non arrivare a odiare ognuno. Possiamo anche discutere dopo la cena o durante la cena diverse opinioni, e può essere anche opinioni diverse, contraddittorie, però dobbiamo rimanere sempre in modo molto pacifico, perché perché c'è scritto Vechol derachea Shalom, tutte le vie della Torah devono portare alla fine alla pace.
Hello everyone, this is Jeffery Giesener from the Jewish Culture and Holocaust Remembrance 10-7 Communities, my really good friend and colleague Dana Shrager from Los Angeles. And we'll be talking about Dana's terrific food site, Jewish Cooking, her ability to understand Italian Jewish research. And so now you're moving to doing Jewish cooking, you're blogging on a daily basis, you're posting to your website recipes. But I also know that you've decided to take another kind of Uber move, and you're actually deciding to become a foodie and travel the world. And your first trip is going to be to Italy, and you're taking people from all over the world with you to learn about the Italian experience. So let's talk a little bit about how all that kind of got together, how that you're like an food entrepreneur. So let's kind of put this in the right perspective and allow the audience to understand what you're up to and how you're entrepreneuring in the food world.
Okay, so what I love about this, and maybe this will help other people as well, is I feel like my food career is my 2.0. So it's very exciting to be midlife and make a shift and turn a passion into something that's more full-time. It's just really fun and exciting to focus time and attention on a new project. So I know, Jeffery, you have a retirement project, which is running this group and these videos that we're doing. And so I just encourage people, if you have something else you love, why not give it a shot? I've been doing this as a passion in the background for the past 13 years, so it's not brand new, but it's been growing, and so now I'm running with it. I guess what I'll say is what I like about being the food world is this isn't only about food, which is wonderful. Food connects people. We enjoy food. I think it's a Julia Child quote, food people are the best people. I'm meeting so many new people and making new friends. That part's super fun. But this is really more than that. This is about helping other people celebrate Jewish holidays, giving people the tools to bring family members and friends around the table. So it's helping my recipes are the tools that help people to gather people around the table, make their own connections, make their own memories. And a lot of Judaism happens in the home. Most of the holidays are celebrated in the home. So this is giving people the tools to connect with their Judaism and connect people with their Judaism around the table. So there's a lot of deeper meaning here. Now, what does this all have to do with Italy? This is the picture that we've been looking at for the past several minutes. This is me cooking in Italy. This is me at a cooking school called the Awaiting Table in Lecce, Italy, in the Puglia region. And that's homemade pasta. It's so fun to learn how to make homemade pasta. It's kind of like playing with Play-Doh almost. If you're like artistic or like to do things with your hands, you can learn how to make many shapes over the week at the cooking school, and a homemade sauce. So I went to this cooking school pre-pandemic, and what I thought was going to be an incredible food and cooking experience, which it was, turned out to be so much more. It opened my eyes to the traces of Jews who have lived in this area. The school in specific is in Puglia. Puglia is in southern Italy. If you picture the peninsula of Italy as a boot, Puglia is in the heel of the boot. So it's pretty much as far south as you can go in Italy, and on the right-hand side, on the Adriatic Sea. Although the way it dips down, it's almost like a spur of the boot. There's also an Ionian coast. So the great thing about Puglia is there's so much coastline. You're probably never more than an hour from the coast, no matter where you are in the region. And when the winds are not favorable on one side of the peninsula, you go to the other side and the weather's great. So it's also got really good climate for growing fruits and vegetables. There's a lot of olive oil production there, wine production there. So there's a very rich food culture down there.
This is wild chicory and how it would like to grow when it isn't cultivated. It has small, mostly horizontal solar panel-like leaves. Spontaneous and self-seeding, it grows nearly everywhere, further proof of nature's benevolence. And this is cultivated chicory. It's harvested between 90 and 120 days. Visitors to the region are often surprised at how often it's consumed, in some homes nearly every day for most of the year. It's so loved, in fact, that it's often just referred to as la verdura. And this went on ever since the medieval era, until the arrival of Lappe, when farmers started taking their tools home at night. And so when you come to Puglia, you'll see the Lappe selling chicory. Buy some. It's been 1,000 years in the making.
There, the bigger cities have vibrant life all year long. Lecce, where the cooking school is a university town. That place is hopping all year long. It's so like vibrant and full of life. You feel the energy when you're there. That's what I love so much about it. You know, people walk around at night before their dinner. So it feels very alive to be there. It's not like Los Angeles where we take cars and sequester in our houses and don't interact with people. There's a very rich food culture down there. It's not as well-known area as some other areas, say like Rome or Florence, but it's very well known from within Italy. It's sort of like, I'm letting you in on a secret. This is the area where the Italians travel in the summertime. So try not to go in August because that's when it's the most crowded, but it would never be as crowded as like somewhere like Rome. And the trip I'm doing is starting on August 31st in the evening. We're there the first week of September. So we're right at the beginning of the shoulder season, which is a really nice time to go because the weather's still good, but it's not as crowded.
My definition of the Cilento, though, is the part of the world that adds barley flour to our fresh pasta. It's the most defining characteristic, the one I miss most when away from home.
What does this have to do with today? First, let me tell you what you're looking at. These are Romans around the time of 70 CE. These are the Romans who conquered Jerusalem and caused the fall of the Second Temple, the destruction of the Second Temple. Here they are coming back to Rome with the spoils, including the menorah, including slaves, aka hostages, and pieces of the Roman temple in Rome.
So we all know today, in 2023, Hamas GoPro'd their atrocities. That's the record of what happened. If you want to know what happened in 70 AD, 2,000 years ago, this is the Arch of Titus in Rome, close to the Roman Forum, right in the center of Rome. This is a depiction carved in stone of the spoils of war and their attack and the aftermath. 2,000 years ago, and we have a record of what happened. They left a record. They brought back souvenirs, like pieces of the actual temple, like chunks of stone. So, as well as people, as they brought them back as slaves. So some of the very first slaves in Italy, some of the very first Jews in Italy came as slaves in 78. They were excavating to build a freeway, and they came upon the ruins of a temple. And this temple was Ashkenazi. So I think that's very interesting, because I don't usually think of Italian Jews as being Ashkenazi, but these people in Calabria were Ashkenazi. So this is a mosaic. This is all original. So also, if you want, I was so happy to see the site, and to see the site with a good guide who could explain what was happening. And that's a replica of a menorah that they found. But this is what it looks like today. These are brass plaques in the ground in front of homes where people were taken from their homes during the Holocaust and deported to concentration camps. You can see right here, you don't really need to understand Italian to see that it's the name of the person, when she was born, when she was taken, and she was deported to Auschwitz, and it looks like assassinate, and she was killed. So the story is so moving to hear it from the great-granddaughter. And she walked me over, like just 2 blocks from where the family restaurant is. She said her grandpa was 5 years old, and he was home with his mother when the Nazis came. And he escaped. Unfortunately, his mother and the neighbor did not, but he escaped by going from rooftop to rooftop to rooftop to get to where his father was. And he and his father were able to escape. So I'm standing there in the Jewish quarter and looking at the buildings and trying to figure out what this 5-year-old kid did. I mean, it's just a really moving story that when you meet the families who are affected by these things, it becomes very real. Tour guide's mother saved many, he's an older man, he saved many people because she spoke multiple languages, and she was put in charge of monitoring conversation and translating. And so she would tell the people who needed to hide, it's time to go hide, in the fields or whatever, because she understood when the Nazis were coming, because she was forced to translate for them. But she was like double agent or whatever. They couldn't really force her cooperation. So it's a really fascinating story. And he said some people are talking about making a movie about what his mother did, and I hope they do, because it's a really very moving story. Okay, this is the synagogue in Naples, where I heard the story of the tour guide's mother being able to hide and rescue people. So, Jews. So the thing about being Jewish, which I think will interest the listeners, is there's a summer camp song that I know, and maybe some others know, that proved to be so true when I was on this journey of uncovering recipes and history simultaneously. So the song is, and I sing off key, so hopefully I'm not going to embarrass myself too much, but the song is, wherever you go, there's always someone Jewish. I don't know, the song goes on. But that song played in my head the entire month I was researching in Italy, because Jewish people kept connecting me to other Jewish people. And everybody was so helpful and so welcoming and so eager to help, especially these women. This is the meeting room adjacent to the synagogue that I just showed you in Naples. And I met with these women. So these women gathered their favorite Rosh Hashanah recipes and put them in booklets for me. And the lady in purple is actually American and speaks perfect English and Italian. So she was my translator and was such a generous conduit. But she gathered these older women who came with their favorite recipes, and she helped us facilitate a conversation. The woman in the more black flowered dress, she spoke some English. She's got like a high up office in the WIZO, the Women's Jewish Organization, but she helped translate for everybody. And the women were thrilled that somebody was interested in them and their community, wanted to learn about their community. And they were so happy someone was interested in their cooking and their recipes. They were super happy to share. So it was okay. Yeah. So this is Angela. She's also in Naples. You could see I'm holding my gift. And she's a musician, but she's also a fabulous cook, and she shared recipes. But this is also part of that connection. Like the Jews all around the world, like we're all connected. It's one big happy family. I think that's part of what keeps us going. That's part of the hope. It's part of the like energy or life force in all of us, is this connection. So we're two moms, we're similar age kids. And after we talked about food, we talked about what we each do. She told me all about her music career, which is very interesting because she plays Italian Jewish music. She's like preserving music and the history of the compositions. But we sat and we talked as moms, and what's it like to be moms to young adults. And she lives across the globe from me, but we share so much in common, and really enjoyed a lovely afternoon together in her home. So hope and inspiration and good feeling, because everybody was so warm and welcoming and generous in Jewish communities in many different cities in southern Italy. Okay, so Silvestro and I are team teaching this class. Silvestro Silvestori has run this cooking school for 22 years. He's an amazing host. He is an encyclopedia of Puglia. The food especially, but anything you want to know about the region. He's a trained sommelier. He in olive oil and wine. So we're going to have olive oil tastings, wine tastings. It's always a good time at his house, because after you have this fun cooking all this food, you sit in the dining room and talk and sit and drink wine for as late as you want. Silvestro never tells you to leave. You can leave when you're ready. It can be all night. So it's kind of like it feels like an endless party. But see, part of what I love about Italy is that warmth and that hospitality and that life happens around the table. That feels so familiar to me. That feels so Jewish, but it's also so Italian. So I've been trying to figure out why. Is this like similarities in culture? Is this because Jews have actually been in the region for a long time and it's like some cross-pollination? I know my family lived in the modern day Ukraine 100 years ago, and going back generations. Where were they before? Because most of the people who ended up in that region traveled from somewhere else. So was my family in Italy way back and I can't trace it? It sure feels like it, because this area and this region like speak to my soul, call my name, like no other place I've been. I've seen Jewish life in France and Spain and other places, and it's all, worthwhile and interesting to see, but nothing like speaks to my heart like Italy. So I want people to have all those feelings. I want to see some other things in the region, including the other museum. I have a town that I love called Otranto. In their cathedral is the largest mosaic floor in all of Europe. And in the top left corner is a tree of life and the names of all the characters from or many of the character names from the Torah. So, there's been, cross-pollination of cultures in this region for a long time. The area has been occupied by Turks, by Moors. For a long time, Italy lived, going back hundreds or millennia, lived with many cultures, living peacefully together. Most of what did not work out for the Jews in Italy had to do with new rulers or certain regimes in the church who started making unfavorable decisions towards the Jews. The people as a whole largely, got along and coexisted peacefully. I highly recommend people stay on longer and especially travel in the region. There are so many super cool hilltop towns that are like walled, they're like on top of the hill. They're all white colored and they're all fortressed or whatever, from the time with invaders. And they're charming towns. There's also many seaside towns, and the water color is turquoise. It's breathtaking. Very unspoiled. Like, this is an uncrowded, unspoiled, more natural area. It's not like going to Venice, which I happen to love. I guess I want people to feel that there's hope, that if we band together and don't fractionalize, and don't go look for the differences, but look for the commonalities, we're stronger together. There's more hope together. The connection is so enlivening, and there's a lot of joy. It's sort of a mitzvah or a part of being Jewish that you live every minute you have to the maximum. And if this trip sounds interesting to you, come and have an incredible time with me, living life to the maximum in Italy, cooking, eating, and learning more about Jewish history.
But Italians and Jews, very similar. People say same corporation, different division. All right? We get along. There's an obvious, thing with the religion. I went to my first Passover dinner. That's what she's like, well, my mother's going to have Pass. Okay, we'll go to the dinner. 7:30, we sit down at her mother's house. I'm starving, right? Starving. They start passing out pamphlets, like reading material. I'm like, what's going on? What are we doing here? What's with the... She's like, no, we read for 2 hours. 2 hours? I said, listen, I'm Italian. As soon as I sit at a table, I got to have bread within 15 seconds of sitting down, all right? I need something to do with my right hand. I need some oil coming out. We got oil? I need oil now. Hungry. And the food they start bringing out, oh God, terrible, terrible food. Jews have no idea what the hell they're doing in the kitchen. These people have no cuisine. Celery, crackers, jam. I'm like, what is it? We're losing people. People are leaving. We need food. After breakfast, they fall apart, the Jews. After a bagel, cream cheese, lox, where are they going? They got nothing. They have nothing. Has anybody ever said to you, we went to this Jewish restaurant last night? The gefilte, amazing. I respect the Jews, but let's just have the Italians cater the Passover meal, all right? Come on. I could read for a couple of hours with some meatballs on the table.